recording now, you will see it pop up on your screen. All right, so to get started in today's class, we want to always start our classes with making sure that you all are familiar with the resources that we have at Bronson in order to either ask for help or find some resources. Our first resource on your screen here is our Find a Doctor feature on our bronsonhealth.com website. On the bronsonhealth.com website, under Find a Doctor, you can either search for a primary care provider or a specialist in your area. You can narrow it down by zip code. You can also narrow it down by who is accepting new patients currently. If you are in the search for a specialist or a primary care, that is a great resource. If you don't use the website as often, you're more than welcome to call one of our care advisors as well. The phone number listed on the screen. They can also help you get connected with the area of specialty that you are looking for. At Bronson, we use MyChart quite frequently. It is a great resource in order to message your providers or look up test results, imaging results. And if you ever need any help with MyChart, our Bronson Health Answers is a great resource. There are 2 phone numbers listed there on the screen or an email address that you can reach out to if you need any assistance with MyChart. Bronson Health Answers is also another good resource if you are ever looking to figure out how much out-of-pocket expenses you would have for a certain procedure or lab draw. Bronson Health Answers can help you determine your out-of-pocket expenses in that area. And then our last resource here is if you need any assistance with a bill from Bronson, our Bronson Patient Accounting Department is available 8:30 to 5:30 Monday through Friday at those 2 phone numbers listed as well if you need any assistance. All right, so let's get started with today's conversation. Today, our objectives for our class is number 1, we're going to learn how to dine out while being very mindful of our health goals and also realizing that each of us might have different health goals in mind. And so we will look at a variety of different health goals that we might be considering when dining out. Number 2, we're going to discuss how to choose a healthier meal at a restaurant, what to look for, things to avoid, so we can try to choose the healthiest meal possible when we are eating out. And our last goal today is that we are going to look at healthier meals at restaurants. We're going to look at some visuals on what makes a meal a healthier option when eating out. Let's get started. And I want to get started with understanding where our group is at as far as, what are some of the reasons that you dine out? So if you want to answer that question, we would love for you to participate. Please put your answer in the chat, or if you feel comfortable, you can unmute yourself and share with the group. What are some reasons you dine out? And that could be a whole variety of things. We all have different reasons for that.
Tina, can you hear me?
I can.
This is Bob Arnold, and Diane and I don't know if you're seeing us or not, but we aren't seeing us, but that could be the Wi-Fi, but we're seeing you, and that's the important part. But we travel across country quite a bit, either up north, or we're both retired, and on our way to Arizona quite often. But the problem is most of our stops are fast food, and that's I hope we get a chance to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Yes. Thank you for that.
Sure.
All right. So in the chat, I'm seeing a lot of answers in regards to eating out. It provides you with a break from eating at home. It's a treat for the kids occasionally, special occasions, or you just don't feel like cooking. A treat for yourself. Absolutely. Good food. It's a time component, an option to have a little bit of variety. Sure. Convenience, socialization, being with friends, absolutely. Again, we all have our different reasons for dining out, and I like to understand, where our group is coming from. I think you guys hit all of those on the head here when I talk about the benefits to dining out, right? There's nothing wrong with dining out. It can provide that socialization. Maybe we're celebrating a birthday or an anniversary, or we're just having some good quality time with friends or family, and it provides a little bit less pressure to be the host and having people come to your home and preparing those meals. So going to a restaurant and being able to just focus on the socialization can definitely be a benefit to dining out. And then a lot of you guys talked about how, there's a convenience factor to dining out. When we're traveling, maybe we're hitting a restaurant or a fast food establishment, or maybe we have really busy work days and after work activities. And so it's easier to just pick up a quick option. And we all, again, have different reasons for wanting to dine out, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. There are benefits. But with dining out, there also comes some challenges too, and that's what we're going to focus on. When we dine out, some of the challenges might be as listed on the screen. Meals tend to maybe come in larger portion sizes than we would serve if we were at home. And with those larger portion sizes, tend to then come more calories, maybe more fats, more sodiums, and that tends to be the tricky part when dining out, especially when you don't necessarily feel like you have a lot of control if you were going to a fast food establishment and feeling like, maybe burgers are the only choice. So what can we do about that? All right, our next question here, I want you to unmute or chat. What is your favorite place to dine out, and tell me why? Where is your favorite place to dine out and why? Go ahead and unmute or type your answer in the chat. Oh, first answer, I do not even know what that is. Zurona? Jay, if you want to unmute and share a little bit more, I do not know what that is. Family style restaurants. South Haven Bowling Alley got the best pizza. Yep, go ahead.
It's just a restaurant on West Main Street. It's Middle Eastern, Mediterranean food.
Yeah.
Families do go. There's like a range of people. People go for celebrating stuff or just lunch.
And is Mediterranean a favorite of yours? Yeah, very good. Another benefit to dining out, right? We get to experience different cuisines and cultures when we get to have that variety when it comes to different restaurants. I love that. An Irish pub in Holland, atmosphere and good food. Yes, that's another benefit. Atmosphere, maybe they've got some live music going, fun time. South Haven Bowling Alley. Oh, 600 Kitchen is delicious. Rustica, Roca. Yeah, very good. All right, a lot of Kalamazoo restaurants. Very good. All right. So I want, when we go out to the restaurants, I want us to not forget about the basics, right? And the very basic is, how are we setting up our plate? So I shared this healthy eating plate in my presentation on Tuesday as well. And I want to present that to you guys here today. This healthy eating plate is from Harvard Medical School, and you can see that it's a little bit different than maybe the My Plate version that you have seen in the past. I like this version because it also focuses on the inclusion of healthy oils like olive oil when maybe we're roasting or sauteing. There's a large portion of vegetables on the plate, but there's also a smaller portion in the inclusion of some fruits, half your plate or a quarter of your plate whole grain, a quarter of your plate healthy proteins, and then water as your beverage of choice in order to limit sugary beverages or sugars from sweet teas and sodas. So whenever we are choosing a meal from a restaurant or a fast food establishment, let's not forget the basics, that the largest portion of our plate, the goal continues to be vegetables with as many whole grains and lean proteins and maybe even a serving of fruit as we can possibly get from that restaurant choice. All right, so as we talked about, we know the benefits, we know the challenges of eating out. Let's tackle some of those challenges. So my first tip for us as we are looking to do some dining out is to plan before you go. And what that means is all of our chain restaurants, whether it be Applebee's, Chili's, all of these restaurants have all of their nutrition information on the website. And it is a good resource to take a look at before you go so you can kind of pre-prepare. It helps you make informed choices when looking at all of the options and asking yourself, what are my health goals right now? Am I really trying to decrease how much saturated fat I'm taking in? Am I trying to increase how much fiber? Where am I right now with my health and what I'm working on? When you go and look at these websites and you're looking at the nutrition information, then you can kind of go into the restaurant already knowing, hey, this is the meal that is going to align with my goals at this time. And it helps you maybe less impulse purchases of a meal that like, oh, that looks really good. Another tip as you are looking at this nutrition information and you go into the restaurant, you know what meal you're going to choose before you get there. Order your meal first before you hear everybody else's meal, right? Because you hear somebody else order and you're like, that sounds good. I think I'll get that instead. But if you've already got your order in, you can't change your mind. All right, so our next question, it's going to be a poll. You're going to see the poll pop up on your screen. And the question is, do you currently look at nutrition information before going to the restaurant? And so you're going to see that pull up on the screen now. Do you look at nutrition information before going to the restaurant? Yes, no, sometimes. I got an answer from the chat too, no. All right, so the majority of you all are not currently looking at the nutrition information before going to the restaurant. And I think that's probably where, yeah, most of us would lie. A couple of you do, and then a few more of you say sometimes. And then we've got a comment in the chat from Jay that says, I specifically will look for offerings that are vegan or vegetarian. Very good. All right. And we're going to kind of touch on that too, about what to look for on the menu if we haven't looked at nutrition specific information. So thanks for sharing that. All right. So most of you are not looking at the nutrition information before going to the restaurant. I want to show you guys what I mean if you've never gone to a restaurant to look at the nutrition information. I want to show you guys where to look for this information and how you can kind of sort out this information to use to your benefit. So I'm going to click on this link. I'm just using Applebee's as an example, and hopefully your screen will change to the Applebee's website. Thumbs up. Yes, very good. Thanks, Isabel. I'm on the Applebee's website right now, and sometimes you just have to do a little bit digging, and that's not specific to Applebee's, but any restaurant. Sometimes you have to do a little bit digging to find the nutrition information when you get here. And again, I realize that we're doing this on a laptop. You could do it on your cell phone, maybe as you're sitting in the parking lot before you enter the restaurant. And there are some other resources too that I will share to look up this information. So here on the Applebee's website, we can see at the very top that, hey, we've got the menu. Sure, that's good information to know what offerings they have, but we tend to generally have to scroll all the way to the bottom of the website before we can find the nutrition and allergens information for the offerings on the website. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this very bottom left-hand corner here, nutrition and allergens. And then it's going to ask me where I want to go. Well, I want to look at the nutrition information, so I'm going to click on that. And now I'm going to see the nutrition facts information for all of the offerings at this particular restaurant. So they have them broken down in categories. So we've got beverages, we've got appetizers here. And the nice thing about having this information available is, yeah, we can scroll through, we could search and just take a look at all the chicken dishes. We've got our chicken appetizers, our chicken soups, our chicken entrees. I'm going to clear out that search, and I'm going to show you up here at the top, we can see all of our nutrient listings, right? We've got calories, we've got saturated fat, we've got sodium, carbohydrates. Am I looking to decrease how many sugars? And then we can kind of sort those, right? So let's say right now it's American Heart Month, as I said, and I'm looking at trying to decrease how much saturated fat I'm taking in, because I know that's not very heart healthy. If I click on the saturated fat, you see the up and down arrows, I can sort those. So either the lowest saturated fat items pop up first in each of those categories, or the highest saturated fat items will show up in the category first. So I'm going to click on this, and it has sorted all of my offerings so that the lowest saturated fat option in each of these categories is going to show up first. So I can continue to scroll down, and I'm saying, oh, I'm going to look at, again, the chicken dish. And I know that that third column was the saturated fat. So in all of the chicken entrees, I can see that this grilled chicken breast is going to be the lowest saturated fat content of all of the chicken dishes at 8 grams of saturated fat, whereas the Fiesta lime chicken has 14 grams of saturated fat. It ranked it from lowest to highest. So we can use that to our benefit. You may be looking at some of this information and seeing that, okay, yes, 8 grams saturated fat, that's pretty low. It also happens to be the lowest amount of calories in general as well, at 550 for that meal. We also may notice that sodium content, 1,730 milligrams of sodium, is pretty high. And that is true, but it tends to be the lowest there in that category of chicken dishes. So again, what is your top priority, right? Because we might not be eating out every single day, but what is our top priority to be focusing on right now with this meal that we're eating out? It is not going to be 100% perfect. Nutrition never does tend to be 100% perfect. So we're choosing the best option for us at this time. Again, all franchise restaurants have this information available on their website. And if you're not using, the particular restaurant's website, there are also other options that, like apps on your phone, like Calorie King is a free app that you can download to your phone. And it tends to have all of the more common meals from a variety of different restaurants as well. So that is one way we can look up that nutrition information and kind of pre-plan before we get to the restaurant, so we're not making an impulsive choice once we get there. In the chat, and let me make sure I don't have any chat. Okay. In the chat, somebody mentioned how they look for specific words like vegan or vegetarian, and that kind of goes along with what I'm saying here. Let's look for keywords on that menu. Some of those keywords can direct us in the right direction to which meal is the healthier of all of the options. And so we might look at something like vegan or vegetarian being more plant-based, maybe more vegetables, more beans. That could be one strategy. Not having maybe a meat source, so there could potentially be less saturated fat. Other things to look on the menu are for maybe the words lighter. Some menus offer a lighter section that would have lower calories typically. Some menus may offer the actual calorie amount on meal option itself. And so you could use that as a determining factor as the healthier choice for yourself. Or you could also look for, oops, I didn't finish that sentence there. You could also look for keywords like grilled, roasted, poached, steamed, or baked. Those options, something like that grilled chicken breast that we were looking at earlier, doesn't have as much fat. There's not fat added. If something is roasted or baked, there typically tends to be less fat added as well. If something is steamed, there's not usually added butters. I mean, there still can be, but it typically tends to have less fat instead. And so in comparison, right, then we're looking at options. Well, you know, those less healthy choices are going to be things that are fried, sauteed. Those tend to things have way more fat in them compared to some of these keywords that we're looking at here. And so I just wanted to give you an example. And this is from a local restaurant in Battle Creek. They had their nutrition information available, and they refer to their menu. I used the words lighter. You can see that sometimes on restaurant menus. They are using the words guiltless grill. So trying to just play upon the fact that it is going to be a healthier option. And you can see some of those key words listed here, specifically grilled. And you can also see that there is, you know, the use of smaller portions, like a 6-ounce piece of meat, or there's the avocado included. So there's a focus on some vegetables as well. So we could take a look at some of these options and say, well, what makes them healthier choices when looking at this nutrition information? What makes them guiltless in their words? Well, here at the calories, right, we have a range of 360 calories to 640 calories. It may seem like a lot when you hear those numbers, but in comparison to some of the other options that can reach, you know, 1,500 calories per serving at a restaurant, that's looking good, pretty good in comparison. We also see that our saturated fat amount, with a range of 3 to 7 grams of saturated fat, is quite low numbers. And then we're looking at our sodium here. We've got a range of about 1,000 to about 2,200 milligrams of sodium. Again, nothing is ever going to be perfect when we are eating out, and so that sodium number can still increase pretty significantly, but we still have some strategies there too, and we'll discuss those a little bit later. All right. So, question for you guys now. Now that we have done a little practicing and looking at that nutrition information for restaurant meals, what is it that you're going to now look at to help you achieve your health goals still while dining out? What nutrition information are you going to look at now that we have practiced? Go ahead and unmute and answer, or go ahead and submit your answer in the chat for me. What nutrition information are you going to look at now that we have done a little practice? So I'm seeing answers like calories and sodium, carbs and sugars, sodium and fats. And I also just want to, yeah, the websites themselves, absolutely, sodium and saturated fats, calories, portion sizes, sodium and fat, absolutely. And those are really those are the big ones when dining out, sodium and saturated fat. I also just wanted to make a point. Somebody asked about that app on Calorie King. Again, that is a free app, and you can look up a lot of the meals at common restaurants, fast food, or your chain restaurants. I realize that a lot of you in the chat also listed more local restaurants, and maybe they're not going to have their nutrition information available. That does make it a little bit more challenging, but we can still use these strategies to choose the healthiest option. You can also, on, you know, either just Googling or putting it into your Calorie King app, if you choose to use that, you can search like a favorite meal. Like let's say we ordered chicken breast and mashed potatoes. you can type in grilled chicken breast and mashed potato on a Calorie King app and still get an idea of the nutrition information, even though, again, it's not going to be 100% accurate. At least we did some pre-planning to help make the most informed decisions. Nancy, you asked the question, where can you find that chart on healthy eating plate? So just Google Harvard Medical School healthy eating plate and a PDF will pop right up. Thanks for asking that. All right, so our next tip is saying no, thank you. So oftentimes restaurants or fast food establishments will offer upgrades to larger portion sizes for just a couple more dollars. And remember that with increased portions are going to come increased sodium, increased fat, increased calorie. So if we don't need those increased portions, we're trying to keep our health in mind. Totally okay to say, no, thank you, I'm good. When we're at that restaurant, saying no to appetizers, because appetizers, again, tend to be a little bit more fried, higher in fat, another sodium source. So saying no to appetizers and caloric beverages, as I mentioned earlier. Nancy asked about that healthy eating plate. And remember, when we're remembering the basics, we're looking at that plate and what is our beverage? Our beverage is water. When we choose beverages like regular sodas, sweet tea, or maybe we're choosing a cocktail or a beer at the restaurant, that comes with extra calories, extra sugar. And depending upon what our health goals are, we may not want to choose those. And so water is going to be the best choice, or maybe even an unsweetened tea to continue meeting our health goals. Next tip is ask for it on the side, and you can fill in that blank whatever it is. It might be the dressing for your salad. It might be the extra butter for the baked potato. It could be a sauce or a dip, maybe the cheese or the gravy for your mashed potatoes. Ask for it on the side. There's nothing wrong with that. They're used to that. The waitresses and cooks are used to having those items put on the side for people. That way you have a little bit more control over how much of that extra ingredient that you want to put on that meal. Dressings, butter, dips, gravies tend to have more fat in them. And I'm using the word fats often, not in any negative way, but fat tend to have more calories in them. So we're really, benefiting in two different ways when we are limiting or using those items in moderation. All right, next tip is asking for half. So when you are going into the restaurant, you've got your order in mind, you're the first to order that meal before the rest of your group, you can ask for only half of it to be served to your table, with the other half already put in a to-go container for you. That decreases the temptation to overindulge or eat more than you intended to. Or you just ask for the to-go container with the meal itself, and then you can divide it up yourself. And that helps you just stay on track with what your goals are. Or if you're in a group, or maybe it's just you and one other person, maybe you decide upon one meal and then having it served either on 2 plates. So then you're just getting half of those portions, or just sharing that meal with the other person. That keeps you in line with your goals. Less portion, less sodium, less fat. All right, next tip is have a snack. So instead of going to the restaurant super hungry, again, maybe it's, you had that long day at work, you've had your after work activities, and now you're starving, and you go to the restaurant and you ate way more than you intended to. Always have some sort of a protein-rich snack on hand for yourself, so you can kind of curb that extreme hunger before it gets there, right? Have that protein-rich snack prior to going to the restaurant so you can feel satisfied. Simply enjoy that food without eating more than you actually expected. So some protein-rich snacks, maybe it's a hard-boiled egg, maybe it's a string cheese, maybe it's just a handful of nuts, maybe in your purse or your pocket, you always have like 100-calorie pack of nuts or seeds, or maybe you just have a protein bar with you that you can eat, an hour or so before you actually get to the restaurant, so you're not super hungry once you finally get to the restaurant. So I want to hear from you guys. What are some other snacks that are protein rich that you could use when I recommend this tip? Either answer in the chat or go ahead and unmute. What are some other snacks that are protein rich? And Isabel shares her peanut butter power bites, and I feel like you just have to share the recipe along with that. They are absolutely delicious. And peanut butter is a good option here too, right? It is a protein source, and you can get those little to-go containers of protein or peanut butter that you can have in your purse or bag. Either you just eat it straight out of the container with a little spoon, or you put it on an apple. Pamela says roasted chickpeas. Absolutely. That is an easy go-to. You've got those in your bag all the time. Have all the different flavors you want. A yogurt. Somebody says, I so wish you liked nuts and peanut butter. Such an easy protein snack on the go. Looking for alternatives. And so if you like seeds, that can be another option. So sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds kind of give you that crunchy snack. Or as Pamela mentioned, roasted chickpeas. You can purchase those already roasted in a bag. You can have those on your person at all times. They're a nice crunchy snack that give you the protein and some extra fiber too. Or they also have roasted green peas, or roasted edamame as another option too. And then somebody says veggies with plain non-fat yogurt and some spices. Absolutely, all good protein-rich sources to kind of help curb that hunger before we get to the restaurant. Thank you guys. And Isabel shared her protein, her peanut butter protein bites. They're super delicious. You're gonna want to try those. Thanks for sharing, Isabel. All right, our next tip is to eat mindfully. And I think that kind of goes along with the last tip we were talking about as far as not going to the restaurant super duper hungry, making sure that we honor our hunger in the moment, right? Having that snack so then we can enjoy the meal without getting stuffed at the end of it. And so if you have not looked up mindful eating strategies in the past, there's a great resource. Her name is Dr. Susan Albers, A-L-B-E-R-S. She is a psychologist, if I remember correctly, and focuses on mindful eating. I'll put her name in the chat box in case you guys are interested in searching her. She has great mindful eating strategies that can be used when we're at the restaurant or at home. Some of these tips with mindful eating is 1, don't go in super hungry. 2, sit back, relax, take your time to enjoy the vision of that food that was just served to you. Take time to enjoy the scent of the food that was just provided to you, and enjoying each and every bite, enjoying the flavor, the taste of each bite of food that you're taking in. Chewing your food thoroughly, right? Making sure we chew that food completely. It helps us slow down, savor, enjoy the moment. But when we're also spending more time chewing the food, we're going to get fuller quicker. Remember, it takes a good 20-30 minutes or so for our stomach and our mind to speak to each other, to let us know that we are full. So if we're spending more time chewing, at the end, we're likely going to be consuming less. So chewing thoroughly also allows us just to eat slower. Pamela says, stop eating before you feel completely stuffed. Absolutely, right? Fill that gas tank up about 75%, and you're satisfied and not stuffed. In between bites, right? We can have our, your utensil that we're using for our food, putting that utensil down in between bites so we can savor that bite of food, or even taking sips of water in between bites can help us slow down and eat more mindfully when we are either, again, at home or at the restaurant. All right, so those are some tips on how to choose healthy items when you're at the restaurant. And these are just a little bit more specific items, right? So when we're looking at that menu, we're looking for keywords. Maybe we're looking for a calorie amount. Maybe looked up the nutrition information before we even made it to the restaurant. Here are some specific items to take a look at, right? So we're scanning all the meals and we're trying to choose meals that have lean protein sources, right? So lean protein source could be a piece of baked or grilled fish. It could be a salmon, it could be a tuna, it could be a chicken breast. And we're looking again for those keywords, grilled or baked, instead of, the fish and chips that have the fried cod or fried chicken, where the grilled or the baked option is going to be a healthier option. When we're looking at soups, we're looking for broth-based soups. We're looking for broth bases because there is less fat. There's still going to be a sodium source, again, so be mindful depending upon what your health goal is in that moment, but there's going to be a less calorie being broth-based over cream-based. So chicken noodle soup or a minestrone instead of cream of mushroom or a clam chowder. When we're looking at pasta dishes, choose a pasta dish that has a vegetable base, a tomato sauce instead of an Alfredo or some sort of cream sauce is going to save us a lot of fat and calories. Again, thinking about that Harvard Medical healthy eating plate, we want to emphasize more vegetables. And so we want to choose entrees that have a serving of vegetables already included, or maybe you're choosing an entree that, has your piece of meat, it's got a vegetable, but I really want to ramp up those vegetables even more. And so I'm going to order a garden salad to start my meal. That's going to fill up space in the stomach, and then you're going to end up probably eating less of your entree, and then you'll have extras for lunch the next day. So double up on the vegetables if you can. Another option when looking at meals is scanning the menus, which meal options have some sort of a whole grain or a legume, some sort of a bean. Is there a salmon meal with a wild rice and asparagus? Because that wild rice is going to have lots of fiber, and that's going to help me feel fuller for longer, and it's going to be a nutritious source. Is there something that maybe has some black beans on it? I think we were looking at that salmon earlier on the guiltless grill option. That salmon had a topper of, black beans and tomatoes and some pico, and that gives you a little bit more nutrition in that way too. You may also choose from an a la carte menu, not being a large entree. But maybe just choosing a la carte, 1 or 2 items can help decrease portion sizes, tend to cost a little less money too when choosing from that menu, or maybe you opt for the salad bar and just make a good salad full of vegetables and, maybe putting some eggs on it or a little cheese. You've got control over how much dressing you put on there. And again, choose water over a sugary beverage to save on calories and sugar. All right. Next, we are going to just spend some time looking at some examples of meals. And these are just going to be picture-based. They're not from any particular one restaurant, or, we're just looking at pictures. They are from some local restaurants, but we're just looking at the pictures for now. So I wanted to make sure that we touched on eating, healthy options at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? Because we don't just eat out at dinner time. Sometimes you're going to enjoy a breakfast and a lunch too. So my first option here when going to, let's say, a breakfast restaurant is to maybe choose the oatmeal option. There's always, most often, an oatmeal option on the lighter menu of a breakfast restaurant. And so you could do oatmeal with a side of fruit, being a lighter option, not as much saturated fats compared to a big, heavy like egg and meat breakfast. And you also get your servings of whole grains and fiber and fruit with an oatmeal option with fruit. If there is not an oatmeal option, maybe taking a look at some of the other lighter options like a vegetable omelette. So this veggie omelet, you can see, is just loaded with onions and peppers and mushrooms. Maybe there's going to be asparagus or spinach. Most breakfast places will have an omelet that is just loaded with vegetables. And again, just thinking about that healthy eating plate, we want to include a lot of vegetables at each of our meals to get our recommended daily servings of vegetables. And they just, are less, they have less calories and very nutritious for us. So a loaded veggie omelet. Sometimes omelets could be made with egg whites instead, or sometimes there's egg whites on the menu as an option. Choosing a whole grain toast, if we wanted to have some toast with that, is going to be a lighter option. We can ask for the toast without it being buttered already and just having that butter served to our table. So then we have control of how much extra butter is on that toast. And then we can see in this picture, we've got our vegetables in, we got a side of fruit there too. So that's a pretty light and healthy breakfast option. So when looking at a potential lunch option, a pick two option. Pick twos are pretty common in like a sandwich shop. And so maybe it's a half of a sandwich and half of a salad, or half of a serving of soup and half of a salad. You get some variety and some flexibility. You've got some control over what you want, and you can use some of those tips that I've mentioned previously, right? Dressing on the side for the salad, so we have a little bit more control over that. Asking for any of the sauces for the sandwich to be separated, so we have control over that. Choosing broth-based soups over cream-based soups. The pick twos are in smaller portions, so we get a little bit variety. It helps us meet our vegetable goal while also eating smaller portions. All right, and so then we'll just kind of move on to some dinner options here. This is one of the pictures from that Guiltless Grill menu that I showed you earlier. This is the 6-ounce sirloin with the asparagus and the pico on top. So we've got a pretty small portion of meat, 6 ounces. It's not like a 12-ounce piece of meat, so we're being mindful of our portion. And we can see that it is just loaded up with vegetables, right? We've got asparagus there, we've got onions, we've got red peppers, we've got green peppers, and it's got a great side of unsaturated heart-healthy fats with avocados. So again, choosing more vegetables or doubling up on vegetables can help us eat more mindfully when we're at the restaurant. All right, now let's stop for a question for you guys. I've got a picture here of another dish from that same restaurant from the previous picture. We've got steak, potatoes, and broccoli. I want to hear from you guys. What have you guys learned today? How can we make this meal healthier? What can we do in the restaurant when looking at this option and saying, hey, can you hold this? Can you hold that? Or can you add something different? What would you do to make this meal different? Type it in the chat or go ahead and unmute and share. So Pamela says no butter or gravy. Absolutely. So we've got some butter on that steak. We could hold the gravy for the mashed potato, or maybe we just add it to the side so we have some control. Somebody says replacing the potatoes with a whole grain, like a whole grain rice, and eliminating the butter. Donna says unload those potatoes, right? So we've got some cheese and bacon bits, and, you know, oftentimes loaded potatoes often come with sour cream. Nothing wrong with that. But if we've got health goals in mind, we're trying to decrease our saturated fat, we're trying to decrease our calories, those are things that we can change to improve the current options on the menu. No butter, no toppings, no butter. Absolutely. Another point that I want to make, when we go to these restaurant websites, you know, like we were showing you Applebee's today, when you look at that nutrition facts information, you can also look at the ingredients, right? So you will see, you know, if sodium is a goal that you're trying to decrease, you will see that all of the particular ingredients for those dishes, right? So if you looked at the steamed broccoli, you're going to see that they're going to season it with salt, pepper, and other spices. You can ask them to hold that salt. Same with the steak. They're going to season that steak with salt and pepper and maybe some other seasonings as well. And you can ask them to hold that salt, just as another tip to decrease your sodium for that meal. You might not know precisely how much that decreases the sodium, but again, it's one step in the right direction to decreasing your sodium intake. Good tips, you guys. Very good. Thank you. All right. Fajitas can be a good option if we're going to a Mexican restaurant. Tend to have a lean steak option or a lean chicken option, or as one person mentioned, maybe choosing a vegetarian option. They tend to have a vegetarian fajita as well, just loaded with vegetables, and maybe they're using black beans as well. And with a meal like this, you also have control of how much you're actually making for yourself, right? So you get your tortillas, you get all of your toppings, you get your cheese and your sour cream. Now you're in control, right? You get to assemble this yourself. You know, how many tortillas or how many actual fajitas are you going to have? You've got control over that. You've got all the toppings, but you get to honor your hunger while also having a lean protein, a whole grain or a bean from a black bean in this situation, and then just loaded with vegetables with the roasted peppers and onions and mushrooms that a fajita tends to come with. All right, here's another option, salmon, rice, and broccoli. Again, salmon being a heart-healthy protein. We've got it loaded with vegetables here. We do have a rice that was Mexican rice, specifically in this option. It's probably a white rice base, but you could take a look at the menu and say, oh, I see they offer wild rice on another meal option. Maybe they can switch this Mexican rice over to a wild rice for me instead. All right. So those are my tips and tricks and some examples of some healthy meals. I want to also just acknowledge Bob's comment earlier about fast food dining. I didn't spend a lot of time talking about fast food, but I think that these tips and tricks can still apply in that situation. So let's say we are running through, you know, a fast food burger establishment. You know, tips there, you know, we're really looking at portion sizes, right? So is it just the single patty hamburger with no cheese? Because that no cheese is going to be more saturated fat and sodium. Maybe we do the grilled chicken salad, if that's an option, or having a grilled chicken sandwich instead of the fried chicken sandwich. We can still use these tips at no matter what restaurant we are going to. Let's say we're going to a fast food Mexican establishment. Going for a simple taco. You know, they've got, you know, maybe like a quesadilla, and asking them to load it with the black bean option instead of the steak option, so we can get that extra fiber in. And again, if you've got the ability to pre-plan, maybe you've got the Calorie King app on your phone, you can take a look at your favorite options at each of those restaurants, kind of hand those handy for you, so you know exactly when I go to, you know, this burger establishment or this taco restaurant, this is always what I'm, you know, going to choose. These are the options that are the healthiest for me. And then you don't have to do that work every single time you go to a restaurant. But I want to hear from you guys now. So either in the chat or unmute, what are your favorite healthy meals from a restaurant? I gave you some ideas, but I love to learn from you. What are some favorite healthy meals at a restaurant? Chanel says a salad with grilled chicken salad with no cheese, fajitas, only half at one sitting, more vegetables than sour cream and cheese, absolutely, grilled fish. So those are a lot of sit-down restaurants too. What about favorite healthy meals from like a fast food? What do you choose then? Salmon, grilled fish, or seafood? Those are good choices. You guys are using all those keywords I talked about today. I also acknowledge and realize that it can be a little bit more challenging with fast food establishments right now, just to like limited menus. At a lot of these places, they don't offer a lot of the salads that they once used to. Somebody says salad with grilled chicken, apple slices from the McDonald's, grilled chicken sandwich, and a salad. Thanks, Pamela. I appreciate that comment. So opting to have the side salad instead of a French fry with your grilled chicken sandwich helps us, right, get that lean protein choice in while still trying to get some vegetables at that meal too. Donna says Chick-fil-A has some healthy options. Yep, lots of grilled chicken options there too. Very good. Thank you guys for sharing. All right. So I know we've just got a couple more minutes left, but I want to hear from you. What are your goals now? You sat through this class, dine out with confidence. What is one thing that you learned today that you plan on using in the next week? Go ahead and answer that in the chat or unmute and share. What is one thing that you learned today that you are planning on using in the next week? Jill says she's going to look up the menus ahead of time. Yeah, looking at the nutrition information online. Yep, same. Yeah, no, it's an important one. I also want to mention, with that Calorie King app, if you're not using a smartphone very often or use apps very often, Calorie King also issues a book, publishes a book every so often with the newest edition, and with that Calorie King book, it has all the updated restaurants in there with all of their options and all the nutrition information. And it's not just the restaurants. Again, you can look up the nutrition information of an apple. You can look up the nutrition information of the mashed potatoes that you might be cooking at home. So if you're not much into apps, then they also have a book version too that you can purchase on Amazon, or Barnes & Noble can definitely order that for you. Other goals that people are going to be working on are, I plan to use half the portion. I always feel like I have to finish even if I am full. Absolutely. Half portion, having that to-go container brought to your table, and then you can kind of portion that out for yourself so you don't feel that pressure to finish your plate. Eat protein before I go out to eat. Absolutely. Janet's going to make the protein bites, Isabel. Enjoy. They're delicious. Joe's going to ask them to hold the salt. Absolutely. Nutrition information on Calorie King, and ask for no salt added to my meal. Very good. Good job, you guys. Very good. I appreciate you all. So I just want to make sure that we hit everything that I said we were going to hit. So today we learned how to dine out while still being very mindful of our health goals. We discussed how to choose a healthier meal at a restaurant, and then we identified healthier meals when dining out. I think we accomplished those. But if you guys have any further questions, please put them in the chat or unmute at this time. We still have about 4 minutes before our end of class. I appreciate you all. Thank you all so much attending. Make sure to take a look at our bronsonhealth.com website so you can look at all of our future upcoming classes. We've got some really exciting ones come March. Thank you all. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.